The sound of police sirens echoed through the bright morning air as dozens of employees gathered outside the towering glass headquarters of Sterling Dynamics. In the center of the crowd stood a quiet single father named Elias Carter, his wrists restrained while confused coworkers watched in disbelief. Just a few feet away, the company's powerful CEO, Vivian Ashcroft, folded her arms and smiled with cold satisfaction, convinced that the humble maintenance supervisor had finally been exposed. Elias lowered his eyes, not because he felt ashamed, but because he knew his little daughter would soon hear that her father had been taken away in handcuffs. At that heartbreaking moment, no one imagined that before the sun reached its highest point, one unexpected phone call would uncover the truth, expose years of hidden corruption, and bring the mighty empire Vivian had built crashing down. Before we continue this emotional journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Little Kindness Tales. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories that remind the world that compassion is never wasted. Elias Carter had never dreamed of becoming wealthy. His greatest treasure was his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, whose bright smile gave him strength every single day. After losing his wife to a sudden illness several years earlier, Elias devoted every waking hour to raising Lily while working 2 jobs. Every morning before sunrise, he prepared her breakfast, packed her school lunch, and walked her to the neighborhood bus stop before beginning his long shift at Sterling Dynamics. His clothes were always clean but worn, his shoes showed signs of years of use, and his hands carried the rough marks of honest labor. Yet everyone who truly knew him remembered one thing above all else: he never refused to help someone in need. Sterling Dynamics had become one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country under Vivian Ashcroft's leadership. She was admired by investors for her sharp business instincts and fearless decisions. Newspapers celebrated her success, business magazines placed her on their covers, and television interviews praised her determination. Yet behind the polished image was a leader who had slowly forgotten the value of compassion. To Vivian, every employee represented a number on a financial report, and every problem had a simple solution: remove the weakest link. Months before that unforgettable morning, the company had quietly begun investigating missing financial records connected to several expensive equipment purchases. Internal auditors searched department after department without finding clear answers. When security footage appeared to show Elias entering a restricted storage area late one evening, suspicion immediately settled on him. Few people questioned the evidence because it seemed convenient. After all, he had access to maintenance keys and worked unusual hours. No one bothered to ask why Elias had entered that area in the first place. He had simply responded to an emergency maintenance request after a water pipe burst, preventing expensive equipment from being damaged. The truth had been recorded in an overlooked maintenance log, but no one with authority cared enough to read it. Vivian believed swift action would impress the company's board of directors. She ordered an immediate report to local authorities, insisting that public accountability would demonstrate strong leadership. The police followed the available evidence, unaware that important records had been ignored during the company's internal investigation. As officers escorted Elias toward the waiting patrol vehicle, he never resisted. His only request was permission to make one phone call so someone could pick up Lily after school. The officer quietly nodded, moved by the father's calm concern for his daughter despite his own situation. Meanwhile, inside the company's executive offices, Vivian congratulated herself for protecting the business. Investors were expected later that afternoon, and she believed removing the suspected employee would reassure everyone that Sterling Dynamics maintained the highest standards. Across town, Lily waited at school with her small backpack resting beside her feet. She smiled every afternoon because she always knew her father would arrive with the same gentle wave and the same warm hug. That day the school secretary noticed no one had arrived. Minutes later, an elderly neighbor named Margaret Holloway, who occasionally helped watch Lily, received Elias's brief phone call and hurried to the school. When Margaret gently explained that her father had been delayed at work, Lily sensed something was terribly wrong. Children often understand fear long before adults admit it exists. Back at Sterling Dynamics, an unexpected visitor entered the building. Nathan Brooks, an independent forensic accountant hired months earlier by one cautious board member, had finally completed a confidential financial review. He carried several thick folders containing detailed records that revealed millions of dollars had disappeared through carefully disguised vendor contracts approved by senior executives. Nathan immediately requested an emergency meeting with the board. Within minutes, the atmosphere inside the company shifted. The evidence clearly showed that the missing funds had never passed anywhere near Elias's department. Instead, the transactions pointed toward a sophisticated fraud involving executives who had manipulated invoices for years. As directors gathered around the conference table, Nathan placed one final document before them. It contained electronic authorization records proving every questionable payment required approval from Vivian's executive office. The investigators still did not know whether Vivian had personally participated or whether trusted executives had acted without her knowledge, but one thing became painfully clear. Elias Carter could not possibly have committed the crime for which he had just been arrested. Silence filled the room. The chairman slowly reached for his phone. Outside, the patrol vehicle had barely left the company parking lot when the officer's radio crackled with an urgent request to return immediately. New evidence had completely changed the investigation. Elias looked through the window without saying a word. He had spent years teaching Lily that truth eventually finds its way into the light, even when darkness seems overwhelming. At that moment, he silently hoped those lessons were true. Back at headquarters, panic spread through the executive floor. Lawyers rushed between offices carrying documents. Compliance officers began securing computers. Department heads realized investigators would soon examine every financial record the company possessed. Vivian's confidence slowly disappeared. For the first time in years, she realized that leadership built only on power could collapse in a single afternoon. When the police vehicle returned, officers respectfully removed Elias's handcuffs after reviewing the newly discovered evidence. One officer sincerely apologized for the misunderstanding, explaining that new information required a completely different investigation. Elias simply nodded. He held no anger toward the officers. They had acted on the evidence placed before them. His thoughts remained focused on Lily. The board chairman personally met Elias in the lobby and expressed deep regret for everything that had happened. Employees watched in stunned silence as the same man who had been led away in handcuffs only minutes earlier walked back through the front entrance with quiet dignity. Some lowered their heads in embarrassment. Others wiped away tears. For the first time, many realized how quickly assumptions could destroy an innocent person's life. The afternoon sunlight poured through the building's enormous glass windows, filling the lobby with warmth that somehow felt different from before. The same place that had witnessed humiliation now became the beginning of long overdue truth. Elias asked for only one thing. He wanted to go home to his daughter. Before leaving, he quietly thanked the employees who had shown him kindness over the years. He reminded them that bitterness only creates more pain, while forgiveness allows people to rebuild what injustice tries to destroy. His simple words carried more weight than the grand speeches executives had delivered for years. As Lily ran into her father's arms later that afternoon, every fear disappeared beneath tears of relief and overwhelming love. Elias held her tightly, silently promising that no matter how difficult life became, they would continue facing every challenge together. That evening, news of Sterling Dynamics' internal investigation spread across the country. Independent authorities began examining years of financial records, and the company's board announced sweeping leadership changes while cooperating fully with investigators. Employees who had feared speaking up finally found the courage to tell the truth about problems they had witnessed for years. Elias never celebrated another person's downfall. Instead, he accepted an offer to help build a new employee ethics program focused on fairness, transparency, and respect. His experience reminded everyone that every accusation deserves careful investigation and that every person deserves to be treated with dignity until the facts are known. Months later, Lily proudly watched her father receive a community award recognizing his integrity, patience, and unwavering commitment to kindness. She smiled with the quiet confidence of a daughter who knew true strength was never measured by wealth or power, but by the courage to remain compassionate even after being deeply hurt. If this story has touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Little Kindness Tales so more people can discover inspiring stories of hope, forgiveness, and second chances. Before we end, tell us in the comments, what would you have done if you were in Elias's place? As the sun slowly settled beyond the city skyline, Elias and Lily walked home hand in hand, knowing that while money can build companies, only kindness can build a life worth remembering. And in the end, truth did not arrive with anger or revenge, it arrived quietly, in the hearts of those willing to choose compassion over judgment, proving that even after the darkest morning, hope can still shine brighter than the afternoon sun. If you'd like, I can also create a matching SEO title, description, 15 keywords, 15 hashtags, thumbnail text, and 8 cinematic image prompts for this story.